Electric vehicle popularity is soaring all around the world. Tesla is one of the companies at the forefront of electrification, largely due to their head start and supply. This year, they're on track to sell 1.8 million vehicles, but many other companies are doing similar and scaling up. At the same time these cars are becoming more popular, many countries or states are passing EV mandates, but this worries many due to the potential downsides EVs bring. In my personal experience, I've only saved time and had a positive experience owning an EV, but the fact is, when traveling long distances, EVs take longer to refuel than gas cars. You need very fast superchargers to recharge these cars, and Tesla says it takes about 15 minutes to recharge up to 200 miles of range. That's really great, but still longer than many prefer. Then, other charging networks can be unreliable or few and far between, which brings us to future battery and charging tech. In order to solve these issues and ensure that electric vehicles can be the most convenient mode of transportation in all situations, there is tons of innovation going on. Today we're going to break down everything we're seeing in this space and what Tesla could dabble in for the future, so let's get into it, and a special thanks to Recurrent for sponsoring this video. The first place that EV battery tech is evolving is in range. This is the first place we see this evolving because, to a degree, a longer EV range can be made without battery tech changing all that much. Tesla's longest range EV today is around 400 miles EPA with the Model S. They've teased more, including a 500-plus mile Cybertruck, 620-mile Roadster, and 520-plus mile Plaid Plus, but of course we've yet to see any of those cars in reality. Instead, Tesla has opted for a more realistic range option so that they can ship more cars with ranges that will actually be necessary for most drivers' daily needs. The Model Y long range, their most popular car, gets an EPA estimated range of 330 miles today. For most people, this is plenty of range, but when you can't charge at home easily or need to travel a longer distance, you may not want to have to go to a supercharger. Instead, a longer range may be best for you. Well, with current battery tech, Tesla achieved a 500-mile range in the massive Semi, so it can be done in the right circumstances. Other companies like Lucid have shipped longer range EVs than Tesla. Their Lucid Air Dream Edition shipped with a 520-mile range, which they noted was over 100 miles more range than their closest competitor. The impressive thing there was that instead of simply slapping a huge battery pack on the Lucid Air, they achieved this range with efficiency, so its 118 kilowatt-hour battery pack achieved that 520-mile range. Mercedes has done similar with their EQS getting around a 350-mile range on a charge. That's lower than 520 for sure, but it's efficient on a smaller battery. On the other side of things, we see others like GM offering decent ranges in EVs, but they are doing it by putting huge battery packs in their cars. For example, the Hummer EV gets a 300-mile range on a massive 212 kilowatt-hour pack. This is not optimal because that huge pack is expensive to charge and takes far longer to charge. It also uses the resources of 2 or even 3 smaller EVs and has actually been limiting production on that car. Over at Ram, they're taking a similar approach with the 1500 EV. It gets an impressive 500-mile range, but gets that with a 229 kilowatt-hour battery pack. So up to 500 miles, it could solve the issue of needing to charge more, but after that, it will take a very long time to charge compared to more efficient EVs. We're seeing innovation and efficiency from many companies like Lucid or Hyundai with the Ioniq 6's impressive efficiency, but long-term, we could see tons of innovation on the battery side of things. When efficiency tops out, that's when battery density comes into play. Earlier this year, we heard about new breakthroughs for long-range EVs found in battery labs in the US. In this case, it's a lithium-air battery that, quote, uses a solid electrolyte instead of the typical liquid variety, potentially boosting the battery's energy density by as much as 4 times above lithium-ion batteries, which translates into a longer driving range. The more density you get, the more energy you can pack into the same size battery pack for the car to use. This, of course, is simply a laboratory breakthrough, though. It's exciting, but could be years away from any practical use. Quote, in chemical products like batteries, it is often much easier to make small battery sizes in small numbers in a lab. Mass production of larger products is much more difficult. Solid-state batteries are something we hear quite a bit about, and many companies are looking into this technology in many ways. In theory, it would allow for better energy density, more charging cycles, faster charging, and better safety. GM has been spending a lot of time working on lithium metal batteries. Quote, GM is entering into a partnership partnership with Solid Energy Systems to develop the new battery platform. GM reports that lithium metal chemistry will offer greater energy density than today's batteries, and that means smaller and lighter battery packs as well as significantly greater range. Predicted range on a single charge will be 500 to 600 miles, and an 80% charge will take less than 15 minutes. Over at VW, they've been working with QuantumScape for future EV batteries. Quote, the solid-state battery specialist published performance data of prototype cells for the first time last December, claiming to improve the range offered by 80% compared to current lithium-ion cells. The Californians also said the cells would enable 80% charges in 15 minutes and over 80% remaining battery capacity after 800 cycles. The battery allegedly also covers a temperature range dropping as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius. So these would bring a lot of advantages, but this technology has been in the works for a long time and still isn't ready for prime time. That's why we haven't seen it from brands like Tesla. Svolt Energy is a company that has announced a 1,000 kilometer range EV battery. Other labs have announced 1,000 miles solid-state batteries and more. There is tons of innovation happening, but what we may see first is evolution in current battery technology. Tesla promised a lot of their new 4680 cells at Battery Day in 2020, and these innovations should still be on the horizon, bringing cost savings, improved range, and more. CATL has been working on LMFP batteries that utilize manganese in order to achieve a battery density that is 15 to 20% higher than current LFP batteries, and they've been working on M3P batteries, which could bring similar advantages. We're expecting to see each of these cell types soon, but for the near future, many US EVs will be only using batteries made in the US because of tax credits. So we may see improvements from Panasonic or others in this way, or we may not see them in cars until CATL builds a US factory, which is expected. The future is very bright when it comes to longer range, more efficient EVs. The smaller the battery packs, the more efficient they can be, and the more energy dense the batteries, the longer they can travel. In the near future, many companies are improving current battery technology, and long term, we could see huge improvements come with things like solid-state batteries. That all sounds great, but what about charging? It's great if my car is efficient, long range, and affordable thanks to future battery tech, but I still don't want to wait 30 minutes or longer to charge. That's where fast charging breakthroughs come into play. Nobody is standing still in any area of EV technology, and fast charging is an exciting area. We already mentioned faster charging solid-state batteries, but there are other technologies that could bring even more impressive charge times. In some cases, a full charge could come faster than filling up with gas and get you more range. This could also mean that consumers are fine with a lower range battery, knowing they can charge it back up very quickly. Selling an electric car is not normally an enjoyable experience, at least it's not how I like to spend my weekends. On top of that, I found that most dealerships grade electric cars on outdated combustion engine standards like odometer. A car might have more miles, but mileage does not necessarily equal battery health. That's why when it was time to sell my 2018 Tesla Model 3, I tried Recurrent. Recurrent's team of battery scientists compares one EV's battery and range to thousands of others to get offers from dealerships that place a premium on cars with good batteries. On Recurrent's site, I entered some basic info about my 2018 Model 3 mid-range, and their estimate was a little over $25,000, which included a $700 good battery premium. So I entered my contact info and they got started on collecting offers. While that was happening, I went to a few other national sites to check their offers. The first site thought my car was long range based on my VIN and still only offered me $22,000. After entering all details on another site, I found out they weren't even buying Teslas, and the last site's estimate was $24,000, closer to Recurrent's estimate, but I'd have to go negotiate with dealerships to get that. Recurrent got back to me with several offers for my Model 3, and the best offer was from an EV specialist in the Bay Area called Ever Cars. They offered $26,000 to $29,000 based on a virtual inspection, then came to my house to pick it up. Overall, it was great. I got a better price and found a dealer I wouldn't have found otherwise. If it's time for you to sell your EV, click the link in the description below to sell with Recurrent. I think you'll be glad that you did. Today, the maximum charging rates we see in EVs is 350 kilowatts. These enable certain cars, in ideal circumstances, to charge from 10 to 80% capacity in as little as 18 minutes. Tesla maxes their chargers and vehicles at 250 kilowatt charging speeds, getting that 200 miles in 15 minutes that they quote. But with their new V4 superchargers, these are future-proofed for max power outputs of up to 600 kilowatts. In the real world, this may never be used, but Tesla has teased 350 kilowatt charging on the Cybertruck. For the Semi as well, they've been implementing mega chargers, which should charge up to 1,000 kilowatt speeds. That's a specific use case for a massive Semi, but if this technology or others could trickle down to consumer vehicles, how quick could it get? Researchers at Penn State have developed an EV battery that can charge up to 70% capacity in roughly 10 minutes. StoreDot is a company we hear a lot about, and last year they shipped samples of their fast-charging batteries to EV makers. They call these 105 cells because they say they can charge 100 miles in about 5 minutes, quote, consistently and without compromising battery's health. They are aiming for mass production in 2024 by partnering with EVE Energy in China. On top of that, they say that our journey will not end there, as we confidently continue with our strategic goal of providing 100 miles of range with just 3 minutes in 2028 and in 2 minutes of charging within a decade. That would be incredibly impressive and would mean, in theory, a 6-minute recharge of 300 miles, although factors may change when it's larger. We'll keep our eyes peeled for StoreDot, though, because not only have they promised this, but they've claimed they've produced 4680 cylindrical cells that achieve this impressive charge time. This could be something we see Tesla implement in future 4680 iterations to bring down charging time in the future. Over at Cambridge University, a startup called Niobolt claims that they've developed an EV battery that can charge in 5 minutes. Quote, the company said its technology allowed batteries to be charged to 90% capacity in less than 5 minutes, while improving power and durability tenfold. A 5-minute 90% charge would be incredibly impressive and completely eliminate any arguments for EV charge time on road trips. Ion Blocks is another startup that says its batteries can charge up to 80% in 10 minutes, and researchers at NASA have said their complex cooling technology could allow EVs to charge in just 5 minutes. Per usual with all of these advances, though, the question is scalability. Not only the scalability of the batteries that can charge this fast and keep great battery health, but the scalability of the chargers that can actually provide this much power. In order to charge up these batteries in 5 minutes, that's a ton of power that has to go into the car all at once, so you need optimized charging stations that can actually deliver that much power effectively. It's a big piece of the puzzle we don't always hear about along with these promises, but that might be where battery swapping could help. Battery swapping is a concept many like because instead of charging up a battery, you could simply subscribe to a battery swapping service, drive into a station, and swap your battery out on a road trip. This would take a couple minutes, and the charge time happened when you weren't there. Better Place was a company over a decade ago that experimented and failed with this idea. Over at Tesla, they actually tested this on the Model S and had a whole event for it 9 years ago, demonstrating that a battery swap took 1 minute and 33 seconds in a Model S. Today, though, they've completely gone the other direction because they didn't find this scalable. That hasn't stopped others, though. Quote, Chinese automakers NIO and Geely, battery swap developer Alton, and state-owned oil company Sinopec plan to establish 24,000 swapping stations across the country by 2025, compared with about 1,400 now. They're doing this because, quote, the swapping solution has advantages. The swapped battery is significantly cheaper than the normal battery, and the service life is longer because it is always charged under ideal conditions. For example, no quick charging, and it can be made smaller. I don't need 500 miles, but 250 miles or 300 miles are enough. And don't forget, it can be charged with inexpensive electricity, for example at night, and then used as smart metering. NIO is the main company we've seen demoing this, and it looks pretty cool. It can swap the battery in around 3 minutes, and there are system checks with the car each time. They've been trying out this technology in the real world with 1,323 stations in operation as of March 23rd. Each station can store up to 21 packs, and they plan to have 2,300 swapping stations globally by the end of the year. They also said that nearly 60% of power replenishment for NIO cars in February was via battery swapping. Most don't expect that this can hold up long term with the complications it brings, so we'll have to see, but it's exciting to see what NIO is doing here. Another innovation that could make EV charging more convenient is connectorless charging. This technology has been marketed for years as wireless charging, but there are other breakthroughs that have been made fairly recently that don't even involve contact, and we'll get to there in just a minute. While wireless charging has come a long way in recent years for small batteries, like those in phones and smartwatches, the technology has a long way to go before it'll become a viable option for EV drivers. Currently, the options that exist for charging an EV are to physically plug in the car at home or to physically plug in the car at a public fast charger, unless you drive a NIO EV in some parts of China. That isn't going to work, though, if these cars ever truly become autonomous like Tesla has been trying to make them. In a future where these cars are driving themselves, They will need charging solutions that are also autonomous. If you get picked up in a robo-taxi, it can't be your job to then plug in the car. You're the customer. Even if the car returns to an owner after the trip, that's wasting time and mileage and isn't actually autonomous if you still need to be home to plug it in. That's where wireless charging becomes necessary, but even if these cars aren't autonomous, it'll still be more convenient for drivers and hopefully aid in the transition to EVs. Suddenly, vehicle owners don't need to touch anything. They just pull into their garage and their vehicle is automatically charging. Or they pull up to a fast charger, check in on their phone, and their vehicle is automatically charging. It would be easy, fast, and maybe even more reliable than current fast chargers. There are several reasons we haven't seen these chargers yet, though. As with any new tech, there are bugs to work out, but there are also a lot of misconceptions surrounding it. Probably the most damaging one is that it's inefficient and therefore bad for the environment. This article claims that's because when power is emitted from a transmitter, a lot of it isn't captured by the target device, so it goes to waste, resulting in the wireless charger using 47% more power than a cable would. There are different types of cableless charging though, and some types could be huge for reducing pollution and toxic waste at scale. One solution has been using infrared light, which is more efficient than its radio frequency predecessor. This tech doesn't even require batteries, which is great for stationary objects like automatic faucets and billboards, but wouldn't work so well in a vehicle. There have been solutions designed specifically for EVs though. As early as 2015, Tesla teased a video of a robot arm plugging in the car instead of a human. This would be a solution for the autonomous vehicle conundrum before wireless charging was viable, but nothing seems to have come of it. Now, almost 8 years later, they may be moving on to a wireless charging pad idea. At Investor Day, they showed this render of what appears to be a charging mat under a Model S parked in a garage. They didn't talk about it specifically though, so it's unclear where they are at with this technology. So that's a hypothetical product from Tesla in the future that they have teased. Several companies have developed wireless charging that currently works though. Plugless Power is a company founded in 2013 that's working on a pad that allows the vehicle to transfer magnetic energy into battery power. The way it works is that a base station is connected to a 240 volt circuit, just like a traditional corded charging station. The base station has a power transfer coil and a parking pad that is positioned in your garage. The pad then converts the live electric power to magnetic energy, which can be safely transferred across an air gap to a receiver, the vehicle's adapter, which is integrated under the vehicle's plastic shielding. The receiver then converts the magnetic energy back into electricity. This tech could even make inductive charging possible while driving. These coils can be placed under roads so that the vehicle never even needs to stop. That's still far in the future, but a recent test from Electrion, an Israeli startup, has shown that it works. Just last month, they drove a Toyota RAV4 PHEV for 100 hours and 1,942 kilometers, or a little over 1,200 miles. In the 5-day drive, there were 56 different drivers, and the car only stopped to switch drivers without turning off the engine. With a full tank and a full charge, the car gets a range of a little over 600 miles, so they were able to double that with their proprietary wireless electric road technology. What's further exciting is that the battery was never depleted. The road was able to maintain the battery's charge, so they theoretically didn't have to stop there. The only issue to solve then is updating the current infrastructure, which will be an insanely expensive, massive project. So in the meantime, even more companies are working on wireless chargers that go in your garage. Hevo makes contactless charging solutions for home, offices, or public chargers that work similarly to Plugless Power's charging pad. Wetricity has one that is as efficient as a level 2 charger, and Nissan is working on a similar system for public chargers. They've been thinking about this for a while, and it's very exciting to think about. In the last 7 years, this has gone from a dream to a possible reality, and I expect wireless chargers for EVs to gain a lot more popularity in the coming years, especially if we see an option from Tesla. The future is bright for EV batteries and charging technology. Some of what we talked about today could be a common staple of these products in the years and decades to come, while other pieces may die out or never see the light of day. Ultimately, it'll come down to cost and scalability, so what we'll see first will be improvements on current tech. What do you think the future will look like for EVs though? Leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts. In the meantime, if you want to see the latest Tesla news, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.